Welcome back to another episode of Fear the Talking Heads, and I am joined by Rachel today
Hey, Bob, I'm so excited to be here, especially once you guys hear the topic. This will be a long one.
with Scream 30 years later. Why is this movie so rewatchable in the horror genre? Rachel, what was your thought when you first saw the opening of Scream? We're just going to get into Casey Becker. She answers the phone. They don't waste any time, which I think adds to the charm of this movie.
hmm I was like, because I did a rewatch, obviously, and Bob and I were joking behind the scenes about how we don't really need to rewatch this movie because we both know it by heart, but you always want to rewatch it because it's just so good. And I was hit. I was just watching right from the beginning, and like you get that ambient, sound and the phone ringing and that scream as the Scream title comes up, and right from the beginning, it's like, whoa, okay, we're getting thrown right in, and then like you said, you go straight into that phone call. When I first saw this movie, I didn't know anything about it. So I did not know that Drew Barrymore was not going to survive those first 15 minutes. So, she comes on screen. I'm like, oh my God, it's Drew Barrymore. Because I love Drew Barrymore. I obviously know her from, the 90s Ever After and Charlie's Angel. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a great film with Drew Barrymore. And then 15 minutes later, it's like, that's what we're doing. And I think it's because obviously we know, it was a behind the scenes issue. They wanted Drew for the Nev Campbell part, and she ended up being this dead star walking. But I think it's such a great opening because it just punches you with you don't know what to expect. Like Drew Barrymore just got shish kebabbed in the first 10 minutes of a movie. Like, wow. And I think that Drew in that scene, she's so fun because Casey obviously is not a character we get to spend a lot of time with, but just from that opening, you get to know her a little bit. She's a little bit teasing, a little bit flirty. She likes horror movies. She's a bit of a, yeah, I feel like she's got a bit of the popular girl going. And she's so good in that scene, the way she switches from being like flirty with, the caller to that, I want to know who I'm looking at. And it's just like, dun, that's just that drop where you're just like, oh, shit balls. Like, this is going to get intense. I've always said that opening for what I think it's one of not just one of the best horror movie openings, I think it's one of the best film openings ever. And it's almost like a little movie in itself, like a little mini film. Like just that opening scene is that could just be a short horror film, and that would be that. But no, I remember the first time I watched it, just sitting there after she died, just being like, okay, well, I guess that's that. We're in for a roller coaster.
She was this close. I mean, her parents are coming up the driveway and she can't even get mom out because I'm guessing one of her lungs is pierced or something.
It's
But
terrible. Every time I say that, I'm like, throw the phone, throw the phone.
yeah,
If you throw the phone, they'll hear the phone. Like, throw the phone at them. It's one of those scenes, like, like every time you watch Titanic, you think, oh my God, maybe the ship won't hit this time. It's one of those things where every time you watch the movie, you're like, maybe she'll make it this time. And what I love about the direction of that scene is it goes from being this really frenetic adrenaline fueled horror scene to this really tragic scene of these parents coming home to find their house in absolute shambles, to find someone eviscerated on their back porch. And just that moment when the mum is hearing her through the phone and she's like, Casey, baby. And your heart breaks because for a minute you suddenly remember, oh, right, this is an actual person within this universe who has parents, who has friends. And then that horrifying shot where she just steps out and that blood curdling scream. And I also find with this, and I also think this travels through to the rest of the movie. The violence in this opening scene is effective, but it's not gratuitous. It doesn't feel like we're reveling and rolling around in it. Like when you see the shot of Steve, the boyfriend, with his guts coming out, like it's a very impactful shot, but you only see it for like 2 or 3 seconds. So you get the impact and then we move on. It's not like it's reveling in the violence. And I feel like that just makes everything so much more intense and so much more frenetic in the scene. I've always been a horror girly, but I have this struggle with I don't love like gratuitous violence. So sometimes like I find like a lot of the 80s horror can be a bit too much for me. That whole torture porn, phase
right.
in the late 2000s, that was too much for me. But this, no, this kind of violence where it's like it's impactful and like the sound effect as well. Like you actually hear the guts, like you hear this squelching sound when Casey goes to turn the lights on, and then you just see, the guts coming out, and like that's all you need. You see enough there.
Yes.
And yeah, like you said, Olivia's death in number four, like that to me, like everyone goes on about how that death is like so big. For me, it's yeah, it's a little too much. We don't need to be this bloody to have an impact. And I think the opening scene of this movie really proves that. Like, I don't think another shot in a horror movie has stunned me as much as that Steve shot stunned me. Like, I remember the first time I watched it, and she flips on the lights, and you just see like his guts literally like pouring out of his stomach, and it's like, oh, these guys are not messing around. And that's the other thing. You get right from the get go, you're like, no, no, these guys are here. They mean business. They're eviscerating people. This isn't like Michael with his little knife coming after you. Like, these guys are gonna gut you.
Knocking off Casey Becker in the first 12 minutes of the movie was very much a hats off to Psycho because
Yes.
no one thought Janet Leigh was going to die in the first part of the movie.
So true. So true.
We thought she was going to be a part of that entire
The main
film.
character. Yeah, you're going along, you're watching, Marion Crane, and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, this is cool, this is cool. Oh, okay. Girls getting killed in the shower, and we're only halfway through the movie. What is going on here? Yeah, no, I hear you. It's definitely feels like a call out. And I also want to say, like, with Easter eggs, like, and all that, what I love about Scream is it's a horror movie about horror movies. So Scream made me interested in watching other horror movies because it was one of the earliest ones I'd watched. So I knew vaguely about, Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. But watching this and hearing her be like, oh, Halloween, the one where the guy stalks the babysitters, I'm like, I want to see that. And then, when the Jason question came up, I was like, oh, is that true? Is his mum the first killer? So I want to go and see that. I think Scream is such a great gateway horror for people who want to get into horror. I say show them Scream because, like we said, the violence isn't too over the top, but it's a horror movie about other horror movies. So it's got so many tropes and so many nods to classic horror. Like you said, the opening is a nod to Psycho. I know we've got more down the line. And when we get to talking about the climax of the film, I really want to talk about how they work Halloween into the climax and use that movie. Yeah, all of those little like, movie Easter eggs, even, the video store scene. What's that werewolf movie with E.T.'s mum, The Howling? And it's like, oh, okay, E.T.'s mum is in a werewolf movie. Now I have to go see that. So I think it's a really great gateway movie for if you want to ease yourself into horror.
The next scene where Sydney's in her bedroom and we've got Billy coming in. He's climbing through her window, which is the same thing that Glenn did with Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's a callback to that. And then he walks in, he's kind of talking to her a little bit, and what's playing in the background? Don't Fear the Reaper.
Don't Fear the
Who's the
Reaper.
killer?
So
Billy
good.
Loomis.
Hmm.
Billy
So good.
Loomis, Dr. Loomis, all these
Yep.
things like from Halloween. Going back to what happened earlier with Casey Becker's mom and how her dad is saying, go down to the Mackenzies. That's the same thing that Laurie Strode said
Yep.
to the kids that she was babysitting. Go to the Mackenzies. Or even Tatum with the 10 on her shirt, that's Glenn
Yes.
10 from his
That one
shirt.
I did not pick up. That one I had to be told about. But I do remember the rundown to the Mackenzie's line because
Yeah.
like I said, when I first saw Scream, I hadn't watched a lot of horror movies. So I really didn't know a lot of the references. But I remember when I watched Halloween and
You went,
Laurie said, run down to the Mackenzie's, I went, hang on, I've heard that line before. Oh. And it was like, something just clicked in my brain. So yeah, I love stuff like that. And then you go back and you rewatch. And yeah, and then as over the years, as I've watched more and more horror, and you go back and you rewatch Scream, you're like, wow, there really is so much in here. So many references that just go over your head the first time watching. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is so rewatchable.
I love that you watched Scream and then went on to watch all these other movies because then, of course,
Mhm.
you picked up on all the Easter eggs. That was really easy for
Oh
you then.
yeah. Do remember the first time I watched this movie, the entire movie, I was like, Billy's the killer. No, no, it's
You,
too obvious. Billy's not the killer. No, no, wait, but it's so obvious that
yeah.
maybe that no, Billy's no, no, wait, no, he's not the killer. And literally the whole movie, it wasn't until right at the end when he did the we all go a little mad line that I was finally like, okay, yes, Billy's the killer. I but
Yes.
it was like it was that back and forth. And I think that's so clever. And I think that Skeet Ulrich once said in some behind the scenes, he said, Billy's the killer. And Billy's the killer so much that you just think, no, it's way too obvious. He can't be the killer. And that is what I get. I think Skeet Ulrich, him and Matthew Lillard and Jamie Kennedy, all three of them seem to be having the best time on this set. And Skeet Ulrich, sneaking in with Sydney's window with his crazy eyes to like try and pressure her into sex. Might I say that even if this guy didn't turn out to be a serial killer, he's still a really crappy boyfriend.
Yeah,
Like the
you're a crappy
pressure he is putting on
boyfriend.
Sid. Yeah, and like when we get later onto the movie, we'll talk about some more of his like fantastic lines where he shows how empathetic he is. But this first scene, I think it's such a great establishing scene for Sydney, for her boyfriend. I love seeing her bedroom because it's so 90s, everything from the color palette to the massive ass chunky computer that she's working on. It's all so good. And again, just a great establishing scene of like I think that Wes does this thing in this movie where he gives you these establishing moments of the characters, which are so good because then they form the basis. So, right from this scene, we can tell that Sydney obviously has some sort of chip on her shoulder. She's got some sort of issue. She's having problems with her boyfriend, and we're going to find out what that is and go from there. And I think the way that Wes reveals all of the information in such a natural way, like when the next day at school, when Tatum's all like, I don't know, Dewey's saying this is the worst murder they've had ever since well, it's bad. And you're like, oh, something's going on here. And then later on, when the police are like, isn't Sidney Prescott the one who, and you're like, the one who what? The one who what? And so
Tell me.
it's this great little mystery that they start to lay. And I just think it's just done so well, this first movie. Like, I do love the rest of the Scream franchise. I do, but no movie is as tightly written as this one. Every scene is just so well planned.
All of these kids, they live way out in the sticks. What is it with that?
I know. What is with this town? It must have like a really tiny town center and then they all just live up in the hills? Because yeah, I remember when the bus dropped Sydney off, I'm like, girl, you better hope you don't have some sort of emergency out here. What if your house catches fire? Like, how are they gonna get to you in time?
I know. Tatum, her best friend, who is so
Tatum.
stylish, so protective, and
Yeah.
has like some of the best dialogue, in my opinion.
I could resurrect one character that has died from the franchise, it would be Tatum. That girl, she is zero to like she is nothing to like full force when it comes to Sydney. The overprotectiveness, absolutely gorgeous. I Her and Dewey's dynamic is so much fun. And I watch it now as an adult and I'm like, oh girl, you cannot be calling him a doofus in his place of work, okay? Like that is too much, girl. But I absolutely love it. And Tatum, stylish, definitely stylish. Oh my God, the orange and yellow like combo of I wanted that outfit so badly. And then yeah, like you said, the number shirt. But Tatum, oh, she like you said, best lines. I love the Bam, bitch went down. I'll send you a copy. Bam, Sid, super bitch. And she's just so good. And then, of course, next day when she sees Gail and she's just like, nice welt, sweetie. And she gives no F's, Tatum. And I don't feel like we've had like a best friend like Tatum since number one. Like Hallie in the second one, she tries, but she's not Tatum. And Rose McGowan, I know, was very passionate about the character because I think they wanted the character to be more of a tomboy. And Rose actually brought her own wardrobe in and was like, just let me do what I'm going to do. And we ended up with Tatum Riley. And I mean, her death scene is still one of my favorite death scenes ever because the creativity of it, you just don't expect someone to use a garage door as a murder weapon. And it just so comes out of nowhere. But I also love her lines, like, oh, what is this? I spit on your garage. Like, that was a great line. And, oh, can I be the helpless victim? So, yeah, Tatum Riley is an absolute force. And, like, Sydney is so lucky to have her. I love her so much.
And she was so
It worked out
confident,
so well.
confident,
I
protective
know.
friend. Everyone needs someone like that in their life.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite lines is when they're in the supermarket and she's just like, Billy and his penis don't deserve you. And I'm like, yes, girl, speak the truth. Tatum knows what's up. That being said, it's not like she's got the best taste in guys either. We all dated questionable dudes back in high school, but luckily for the rest of us, they didn't turn out to be serial killers.
Smaller scenes like the cheerleader and her friend that were in the bathroom. It's such a small scene, but it's so quotable. It's not like we saw them again or anything in the rest of the movie, but
They
yeah,
leave
it's
a
a huge
mark, don't
part.
they? It's iconic. It's so quotable. My friends and I still do the, oh, you are pathetic. pathetic line, as they're walking out. The direction of that scene, the way the camera comes in so close on Sydney to kind of see her reaction. And you have to think that people have probably been talking about her like this since her mother died. There's all those rumors about her mum, which she has heard. And, after her mother died, there would have been a lot of talking, a lot of eyes following her. And I just think that Nev does such a good job of portraying how still broken Sydney is. You can see how much she's still struggling, and the way that Wes uses the close up on her face to kind of really show you without any dialogue the struggle that she's going through. So, like, it's a really great scene because you can laugh at it and you can laugh at the quotes, but then we cut back to Sydney, and again, it's like, oh, we're dealing with, a real human within this universe. And I just love when she comes out and she just kind of straightens herself up and looks in the mirror and she's just like pathetic, like they're pathetic, leave them be. And yeah, no, again, just sometimes, like I was watching it last night and I was just thinking to myself, Wes, RIP, but he was so good at knowing exactly when to use which shots. He knows exactly when to Dutch the camera. He knows exactly when to go in for the close up. He knows exactly when to pull away. And all of this put together gives you this beautiful, intimate experience. Like I was watching the scene where Sydney confronts Gail when they're talking about, do you think Cotton Weary is still innocent? And the way that Wes uses the close-ups to get really close into their faces to show how intense and how intimate it is between these two and the tension and everything. And without his direction, this movie wouldn't be what it is. Like, obviously, we get great performances and the story's fantastic. And, Kevin Williamson, obviously, that script is so well written. But Wes comes in and just waves his magic wand, and you get this absolutely beautifully made film where everything is so well put together. Like even little things like when you mentioned earlier the scene where Sydney's alone at her house and gets her phone call. There are great hints in that scene. Like when Sydney comes down the stairs and she opens the cupboard door, the one that Ghostface comes out of it. There's a musical sting that you kind of are like, what? Nothing's going on. Why did we hear that? And then later on, it gets put together. Like little things like that, just so much attention to detail and so much love. Like you said, you really can tell. You can always tell with a movie that's being made about other movies if it's made with love or if it's made with like disdain. Like I always use as an example the movie What We Do in the Shadows, which is a parody vampire film. And I love that movie because it makes fun of vampires, but you can tell that they love the subject matter, so you don't feel like it's being condescending. And Scream has that. It's like it's making fun of the horror movies, but you can tell they also really love the horror movies. So I love when it comes from like that kind of a place because you can feel it in the movie.
Even when we get to the party, we get to that party scene, and it's originally like what, over a dozen people that are all sitting there having a nice movie night with beer and having a good time. And then they get this call, of course, that the principal is dead. Henry Winkler wasn't supposed to die. Needed
They
a
kind of went,
kill.
hang on, we've had 20 minutes with no blood. We need to kill someone. And then, yeah, they kill. Oh, man, I love Himbry. I think Himbry is so great. Harry Winkler, like Henry Winkler is so good. First of all, I love the fact that he didn't take a credit for this film because he didn't want, the other people to be overshadowed. And secondly, he's such a great red herring. Like when he's with the two kids and he's like, I should slice you up, you little shits. And I'm just like, this dude is so great.
Because it's not something you would like, oh, the Fonz.
I know, right? I know. It's like, what's he doing? Well, you just expect him to come in and just be like, hey. It's
Right.
like, oh dear. But he plays that part so well. And his death scene is really fun because you have that little cameo from Wes in the Freddy Krueger get up. It's like, oh, you little shits. What you call me? Not you, Fred. So good. I love the way that they have Halloween playing in the background and they're actually using the sounds from the movie. Like I love the way it's interspersed with Sydney and Billy like having sex for the first time and they're like, here comes the obligatory tit shot, and you see Sydney take her top off. It's edited together so well. But I also love right at the climax of the movie when Dewey has gone back into the house. They actually use the Halloween as like almost like the soundtrack. They're using the Halloween stings, and you can hear, the musical cues from Halloween coming through. And I think it was such a clever way to incorporate the movie into Scream without it being over the top. And of course, I mean, one of my favorite scenes is Randy on the couch doing the behind you, Jamie, Jamie behind you. And I know a lot of other people didn't like the scene from Scream 5, but I loved Mindy reenacting that. I remember when that scene came on, I was like, this is a meta scene inside a meta scene inside another meta scene. Like, this is
Yes.
brilliant. There's this YouTuber, Zach Cherry, who does a lot of Scream stuff, and he has this fantastic video where he maps out where Billy and Stu are in the opening scene. And when he maps it out, you can actually see how clearly that scene was written and how they move around the house. And I found watching that reenactment made the scene that much scarier because suddenly I knew exactly where they were, exactly what they were doing. And he points out little things like you see that shot where the swing is moving slightly as if to indicate that someone's just got up off the swing and is moving around. So when you go through like his videos, he really points out how well written the first Scream is and how tightly done it is. And it's not one of those ones where like, I mean, I love the rest of the franchise. I really do. But there are some movies where it's like, okay, is Ghostface teleporting? Because how did you get from there to there? Like Roman in number three is like teleporting all over that
I'm
mansion,
never gonna
man.
shut
He
up
is
about
just
that.
no, he's is everywhere. Even in number two, there's like the scene with like Hallie and Sydney in the cop car. Ghostface somehow gets from being in the cop car to being at the end of a street within like 2 seconds. How does that happen? But you don't have that at all with number one. With number
No.
one, you can always map exactly which Ghostface is where, who's doing what, who's calling who at what time. And that's a really fun exercise sometimes to go through the movie and try and figure out who killed who. You know, like there was this big debate at one point over who killed Tatum until everyone's like, no, no, it was Billy because Stu was in the house, things like that. So it's really fun to watch the final scene with Sydney running around and try to figure out which one is chasing her, which one is Stu and which one is Billy. And it's just, but it is so well written that you can always tell which one it is. And I just think that's so fantastic. And as much as I do love the other films, it's like maybe we take a step back and work a little bit more on these scripts before we release them, okay?
Nowadays, because of the fact that you've got Billy and Stu as these partners in crime, you now have the LGBTQ community saying, "Hey, I think they were lovers." And I think that
Mm,
that's kind of cool that there's this whole other generation that has brought about this thing that's making you think like maybe they were lovers. I don't know
hmm
because he
I'm
seemed to
thinking
have.
Stu definitely had something. I mean, that end scene when he's like leading in real close, like, dude, what are we doing here? What is happening? And he seems like really betrayed, like when he finds out that Billy has a deeper motive. So I'm thinking there was definitely something there on Stu's side. Billy, well, we know that Billy's a big hoe. Okay, we know that he cheated on Sydney, so it could be that he was like stringing Stu along. But I also remember in movie six, Greg, the guy who dies, who's the first Ghostface that we see, he goes home and finds his partner, his housemate in the fridge. I remember there were a lot of people that were like, are those guys boyfriends? I remember I thought that they were boyfriends. Just the way that they talk to each other and they flirt. So I really love that. I love that the LGBTQ community is like,
Yes.
yeah, Billy and Stu, slasher lovers. And I'm just like, yeah, that would be cool. And it'd be really cool if like, okay, if I've never been on the Stu train, but if they do bring Stu back and his motivation is like, you killed my boyfriend, that would be so
Oh
good.
my
Like, imagine
God.
him coming back
Can
after
you
all
imagine?
these years to get like 20-year revenge on Sydney for killing his lover. Like, that would be fantastic, I think. Imagine, because everyone's like, oh, what if he has a shrine to Sydney? It's like, what if he has a shrine to Billy? What if he's
Right?
like been sitting in like a dark, attic all these years, like with this shrine to Billy?
Oh,
And
dun
like
dun
just getting
dun.
mad at all these other ghost faces trying to like take his place. Like, you'll never be Billy. Oh man, I'm really liking this idea all of a sudden.
You just created a whole plot line. I love that.
Just created the whole seventh movie.
Oh
Oh
my gosh.
dear.
Now, if something like that were to happen in seven, you're gonna be like, Barb, roll it.
Uh-huh.
Roll it.
If that happened, I will be in the cinema and I'll be like, I'm going to call Bob. I don't care if it's 5 o'clock in the morning in America. Bob, we were right. It's the jilted lover story. One of my favorite exchanges. Jesus, the camera. My name isn't Jesus. Just
When he autographs, he writes that for people. I want him to write that for me. My name's not Jesus, it's
Oh,
Kenny.
I love it. Oh, it's so good. No, Kenny is like this unsung hero. He's always there to back up Gail. He's always ready to go live. At the end, he ends up getting his throat slashed to protect Cindy. Kenny's like, he's great. And that's that scene where he and Gail are watching the movies, and he's got like a Cheeto or something, and he's literally just like watching this. making patterns with it in the air.
Say he's definitely her work husband, you know?
Oh, definitely. And I love Joel in the second one as a replacement for Kenny, and how Joel is so savvy. Okay, we're gonna talk about Scream 2 for 2 seconds, but I love when Joel's like, okay, you know what? People like me, we do not survive these things, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come back when the bloodbath is over. And I'm like, yeah, Joel is savvy. Joel knows what's up. He knows
Knows.
what kind of movie he's in. And yeah, poor Kenny. I also love when he ends up on the roof and Gal's like, Kenny, I'm so sorry, but get off my I think that Scream is one of the few horror movies where the comedy lands and it doesn't detract from the movie. You know how sometimes you'll get horror comedies that they go too far into the comedy. So you're like, okay, now it's not scary anymore. I feel like Scream has a great balance. Like you have those scenes where you are genuinely laughing, but 2 minutes later, you're scared shitless again because you're back in the house being chased by the killer. And I just think, characters like Randy, like Stu, they're so natural in the way that they present these characters and some of these lines that you just can't help but laugh. Like Randy and Stu, their dynamic at the video store, so much fun. And of course, the liver alone. You better live her alone. What? It was a
It's a
joke.
joke.
What? It's just so good. So good. So we've talked a bit about Billy, but how do you feel about Stu? Do you love Stu as well?
I have always liked Stu. I've talked to Eric about this too before, and Eric's like, he's not a fan of Stu. He hates that Stu sticks his tongue out a lot. Miley Cyrus used
Yeah.
to do that
Mm-hmm.
all the time
Yeah.
with the sticking the tongue
Mm-hmm.
out, and I hated it. I'm glad that she got out of that phase. It lasted maybe a year or two, and I was like, stop doing that. It's so dumb.
Bad.
So Eric feels that way about Stu, and I
Oh,
get it. I
that's
get it. He's like, he's
yeah.
so stupid. That interaction in the hallway where he's like, "What do you mean? Yeah, it's like Christmas." And Tatum's like, "Stupidity leak."
Pretty like yeah. Hey, easy, easy. Yeah. Or when Sydney's like, so how's Billy? Is he really pissed? He's like, yeah, since you labeled him the candy man, his heart's broken. What? What? I also love there's a little bit, which again is one of those moments where when you watch the movie the first time, you think they're just joking. When you watch it the second time, you're like, oh, it's when Sydney asks, how do you gut someone? And Stu's like, well, you take a knife, you split, and Billy's like, hey, it's called tact, fuck rag. And at first you think, the first time you watch it, you're like, oh, Billy's just being a good boyfriend. But then you watch it the second time, you're like, oh, Billy's like, dude, shut up. What are you
Yeah,
doing? Like,
stop
you're gonna
talking. You're
give
talking
Randy
too
away.
much.
Exactly. And then when he's all like, no, I didn't kill anyone. He's like, nobody said you did. Well,
It
thanks. And it's
gave him the
like,
eyeballs.
like
Like,
this. Exactly. Like when you watch it the second time around, you're like, oh, Billy is pissed. Like they're gonna have words behind, like afterwards. He's gonna be like, dude, what are you doing? Look, I get what Eric's saying about Stu being stupid. And I think if Stu was played by anyone but Matthew Lillard, he would
oh
drive
yeah,
me crazy. But because Matthew Lillard has that kind of energy, that over the top energy that just really works. And I found, okay, we're going to go into another one of the movies for a second. I found in number 5, Amber tried to recreate that and it didn't work. Not for me. No shade to Mikey. I'm sure she's a great actress otherwise, but she couldn't pull off like the unhingedness. Like Matthew Lillard, it feels almost like it's his natural personality coming through. So through all the unhinged moments, I can understand why they might irritate some people, but for me, he just feels so natural. It's like this is just Stu. And he's got so many moments. I love that ad-libbed moment when Billy hits him in the head with the phone. He's just like, you hit me with the phone, you dick. Just love, things like that. Just so much fun. And I think that Stu's energy, it really offsets Billy's because Billy is so much more psycho. Billy, like, Stu, you get the feeling is just having fun. I mean, I know that sounds really bad because they're killing people, but it feels like to him it's just like a game. Whereas Billy, he's a bit of a psycho. Like
oh
he
yeah.
actually wants to hurt people, and he's got an actual motivation. Stu, what's your motivation? Peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive.
I always had a thing for you, Sid.
Yeah, so good, so good. So, wait, do you remember when you first watched the movie? Did you see like Stu being revealed? Like, was that ever a suspicion for you, or
Oh,
was that like a big surprise?
that was a big surprise. Every one of them in the franchise, I always think, oh, I know who it is. And I'm never right. I'm never right about this. But I'm kind of glad that I'm never right because then it's like you open a present in that
Yeah.
third act. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I've just been given a present because I didn't know.
Exactly. I think what was so great about Scream is it introduced the concept of two killers, because before in horror movies, you just have Michael, you just have Jason, you just have Freddy. You don't anticipate two killers. So Billy was revealed, and I was like, oh, okay, so Billy's a bad guy. But then, yeah, when she runs into Stu and he's just like, surprise, Sydney, I was like, oh no. And then like from there, it was such a great roller coaster. And like you said, I think you're right. I think if that kitchen scene had just been Billy and Sydney and had just been played straight, no, it wouldn't have landed. But
Right.
Stu being there, being the comic relief, and providing this weirdly dark kind of humor, because you shouldn't be laughing at it, but when he and Billy are stabbing each other and they're like, "Oh man, you cut me too deep," it's like this shouldn't be funny, but it actually really is,
Oh,
watching
I
these two
know.
teenage boys just flail around, and they're so stupid. I always think in the end, I'm like, you kill Sydney first, then you stab each other. A lot of people see it as a retcon, but I don't see it as a retcon, more as it's just filling in the blanks. Because, I
Yes.
mean, Billy had to find out about his dad having an affair from somewhere. Teenagers usually are not really attuned to what their parents are doing. So he had to find out from somewhere. So for me, when that reveal came in number three, it was like a full circle. It was
Yes.
like, oh, we've come full circle back to the beginning. So I always liked that. What about you? How did you feel?
Well, Billy was already psycho, so it didn't take a lot of
Yes.
convincing, I don't think, for
Yes.
him. And with
No.
Roman being just the smarty pants that's in the background, like, hey, look what your dad was out doing, and, what are you going to do about it? And I love the banter between Roman and Sydney.
She's like, Jesus, I've heard this before. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, will obviously Scream 3 is a whole different discussion, but I just wish there'd been an interaction with Sydney and Roman before that final scene. But
Yeah.
no, I think that reveal is so great. But speaking of Sydney in this movie, oh, she is such a great character. I think that Nev Campbell was just the perfect choice. I don't know if you were a Party of Five fan, but I used to
I
watch Party of
was.
Five, so yeah,
Yes.
so I knew her from there.
You don't always get to see that character arc happen in the first one, but I feel like her arc was already kind of happening. And then one thing I want to mention is the tropes of you lose your virginity and you're gonna get killed now. And this was one
Hmm.
of those movies where it said, hey, yeah, she did fool around, but look, she lived.
Hmm.
She not only did she live, but she ended up being, this final girl in the
Hmm.
movie. And I just thought that was so cool that here she is,
Hmm.
this badass that she fought back. She didn't just survive, she actually fought back,
Oh
with
yeah.
the
Hmm.
umbrella and everything. She wasn't a scream queen, she was a final girl. There's a difference.
Absolutely. Oh, I love the way you say that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, she's not going down without a fight. And like you said, she'll use anything she can as a weapon. You mentioned earlier Easter eggs and seeing things you don't see before. There is, it's not so much an Easter egg as it's adding to the character. But when Sydney is running through the house away from Ghostface, she goes into a room that I think it must obviously be Stu's room because it looks like a kid's room. But if you look really closely, you can see there are dolls like hanging from the ceiling in nooses and things like that. So there's like a lot of, like, if you look closely at her surroundings, which you obviously don't when you're first watching it because you're too busy watching her, you can see that they've laid the groundwork to show that Stu is not quite right. So like I love little things like that. It just makes the experience so much richer because these are things that you don't consciously pick up but you subconsciously pick up on. Like you'll notice, like if a movie comes out with like bad production or bad costuming, people will notice even if they don't realize that they're noticing it, and then they'll talk about it later and say things like, oh, what didn't feel that authentic, and I can't figure out why, but it's because of that. So the fact that in Scream they're like, oh yeah, let's just put some hanging dolls in Stu's room, show that he's kind of like Sid from Toy Story, that. And yeah, Sydney at the end. Oh, she's so brilliant. I love when Randy and Stu are both trying to convince her, like, oh, it's him, Sydney, it's him. And she's just like, oh, screw you both, and just shuts the door on both of them. I'm like, yes, girl, that's what you do. And yeah, and of course, the not in my movie is such a great line. And yeah, I like you said, it's a complete arc with this one because I also really like the struggle she has with trying to reconcile her mother's past and the fact that she may have misidentified Cotton. Now, I've always had this theory that Sydney, on some level, kind of knew about her mum and Cotton, and that's why she's pointing the finger. Even if it's not a conscious decision, I think subconsciously she does know. But no, I've always kind of thought that aspect of Sydney was quite interesting, and her beef with Gail was quite interesting.
we saw that progression of the relationship with her and Gail get better throughout all of the installments as well.
I think Gail in the climax is so great between like the Kenny line and then just coming in with the I've got a new ending for you. Yeah, the reporter left for dead comes to. I also love the I thought you said she was dead. She looked dead. She still looks
It's
dead.
still
And like, yeah, I actually wanted to ask you. So Dewey and Gale, obviously this is the first movie, where they first meet up. I've long suspected that Gale was written more to kind of take advantage of Dewey and to kind of be playing him, but because Courtney was falling for David, that kind of came through, and that's why the relationship is sweeter. At least that's always been my impression. What
Oh,
what do
I
you reckon?
wonder. Yeah, maybe so. I kind of I liked the
Mm.
relationship with them too, but at the end of Scream where she's out there, she just like brushes away the night off of her and she just
It's
gets
like,
back
oh,
in
just a
with
bit
her
of blood.
mic.
She's awesome. I say it to Stephen every time I watch the movie. I'm like, look, say what you want about Gail Weathers, but that woman just went through a freaking nightmare and she just brushed herself off and said, let's go. Like
Yeah.
she was a reporter above everything else. And another thing about Gail is she's the antagonist to Sydney, but it is very interesting that she is pushing for Cotton's innocence and she's right. Like it's not just her stirring up crap. She's actually it shows like a hint that she actually is a decent journalist. Like she's done her work and she's done her research. And, obviously she's, like you said, she's a bit of a tabloid. I love when Sydney calls her a tabloid twit. That's a great insult. But it kind of shows that there's a deeper layer to her that she, and she's not just believing it because she wants a story. Yeah, I think it's really interesting that even though she's the antagonist, she ends up being right. She ends up, Cotton was innocent. And I just find that aspect really interesting to Gail's character.
I don't think it's talked about enough, how music can make or break movies or TV shows. So not only did we have really good music throughout, I mean, Red Right Hand, and then the down, 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 when you see
Hmm.
Deputy Dewey, but
Yes, Dewey's
at,
theme.
even at the end, even at the end, they pulled out Whisper to a Scream for us.
Hmm.
Whenever I watch it, I let it play even through the credits because I just
Oh
love
yeah.
that song too. So
Hmm.
I guess I say all of this to say that's part of what makes it rewatchable for me too, is the music that's in there, even all the way through to the end.
Absolutely. School's out for summer. Love that one
Yes.
being used. That one's fantastic. And so the music is fantastic, absolutely. But the score, Marco Beltrami, that score, I listened, like I have this playlist on my Spotify, which is all just instrumental music, and it starts with Trouble in Woodsboro because I love that score. It just I know it sounds really weird, but it just so fits the movie. You know how sometimes you'll have scores that you're like, oh, it doesn't quite suit the movie. No, this is like Scream. And Marco Beltrami went on to score the Fear Street movies, and they were fantastically scored as well. And they had a lot of Scream shout outs in them too. But yeah, no, that score and that beautiful haunting where it's just the female voice kind of singing, like the one note when Sydney's at her house, that's beautiful as well. And yeah, no, I absolutely hear the soundscape of a movie can definitely add to its atmosphere. And sometimes you'll have movies where you can tell that they've just grabbed some random generic songs and just put them in. But sometimes you'll get movies where you're like, oh no, you've thought about this soundtrack. And yeah, definitely with this one. And I am always, every time I rewatch the entire franchise and I get to number 4, I'm like, why do you not use Red Right Hand? You are the only movie to not use Red Right Hand. Come on, Scream 4, pull it together. It's the tiniest thing, but it really annoys me about Scream 4. I'm like, you have to use the song. Why would you not use the song? And I love how in Scream 5, it's used in like a meta sense because the killers put it on themselves. So it's almost like, they're making their own soundtrack, which I thought was just so funny. But no, I'm with you. The score, the soundtrack, yeah, so good. And yeah, Whisper to the Scream, so good at the end. And then they bring in that beautiful score that you can just watch through to the end of the credits. So yeah, you know how when you watch on streaming, you'll watch to the end of the movie, and then when you go to rewatch it, you'll see you've only got like 2 minutes left. I never have that with Scream. I always watch right to the end, and then because yeah, you're right. The soundscape is just amazing, and even the sound effects. Like I said, like that opening scene when Steve's being gutted, you can hear it. You hear the squelching, and it's like, oh, okay, that's lovely. But it really adds to the atmosphere.
There's parts in the editing at the very end where Dewey is coming out because he's just been stabbed in the back and she yells something and it doesn't match with her lips. It's almost like the when they went into the
Yes,
editing.
There are two
Yeah.
moments with that. There's
Yeah.
that one where I think she yells, the sound says Dewey, but her mouth says something else.
It's like,
And then there's
no.
an yes, yes. Then there's
Why?
another moment. It's when Gail is about to go for the walk with Dewey, and she turns back to Kenny, and her lips say "keep watching," but the words say "I'll be back soon," and it bugs me every single time. You can see her say "keep watching," but the words are like "I'll be back soon." I'm like, that's not. You've redubbed that. That's very bad. That's very very bad. But
Like,
like
listen.
that's pretty much it. That's like the only
Yeah.
mistake I have found in this film, and I have watched it. Oh, I couldn't even count how many times I've watched this film. I always find it funny when you see these things on like the internet. People will be like, "Oh, tell us a film that you've watched more than 3 times." I'm like, more than 3 times, amateurs. Try more than 300 times, then you can come and have a talk to me. Where do you land on the Stew train? I mean, obviously we know that Matthew is going to have an appearance in number 7, but do you think it's
Right.
going to be a flashback, or do you think Stew lives?
Okay, so this is so fun for me because even though there's people that are really hateful on the internet and they say, "Oh, I
Oh,
can't believe you
mhm.
people, you still think he's alive." Whether he's alive or whether they're bringing him back in more of an AI version, I have trust in Kevin Williamson that he'll find a good, proper way to make this happen because it's his baby. I don't think he's gonna do it dirty. This could be a cool thing, whatever they come up with. I don't think they'll do it in such a way that's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I think Kevin Williamson he's a very smart script writer, and they'll find a way to do it well. I was always on the board of like Stu is dead. He's gone, because I was always like television to the head, and not like some flat screen, like massive boxy, but
But you're
television to the
not
head. But
hateful about it,
after
Rachel.
I've never been hateful about it.
Yeah.
And I always love like seeing other people's theories, And like my
Yeah.
husband and my sister, they are both like big, like Stu's coming back, Stu's coming back. So we have a lot of fun conversations about that. But I have to say, after Scream 6 and Chad surviving like a
Right.
thousand stabs, it's like, okay, look, if Chad can survive that, then Stu can survive a TV to the head. Like Chad surviving basically made me more open to the idea of Stu surviving, because I was like, well, if I can be on board with that, then I have to be on board with Stu. And this is just me personally and the way I like to watch these movies. I love the fact that Ghostface is always different. I love the fact
Yes.
that he's not a continuing, like Michael and Freddy and Jason, that's all you get. Whereas Ghostface, it's always like, who's behind the mask? So I've always loved the fact that Ghostface, they're disconnected and they're different people. And for me, bringing someone back, that doesn't fit this franchise, at least not
Right.
in my mind. But I'm open to it, and I'm open to seeing where they go and what they do. Although in general, I am a little worried about Scream 7. I have been, since the whole debacle with Melissa Barrera. But because for Scream, for me, it is the one franchise, the one horror franchise where I genuinely like every single film. And I'm not exaggerating there. Like I have my favorites and my least favorites, but I will rewatch every film. Whereas, Halloween, I won't watch like a bunch of the movies in the middle. And same with Nightmare on Elm Street. So I'm hoping that Scream 7, I'm like, please don't be the first one that I dislike. Please don't like bring this franchise down for me. But I do have trust in Kevin Williamson. I don't think that Nev would have come back if she hadn't approved of the script, if it hadn't been a tight script. So we'll have to see. But also for me, Sydney's story is very much done. It was done in
Right.
Scream 3, which is why I feel that her appearance in Scream 4 is one of her weakest, and that her cameo in Scream 5 was a better solution. And we've seen with Scream 6 that you can do a movie without her. So I am a bit
Yeah.
worried about what they're going to do with her character, but it looks like it's going to be a bit of a mother-daughter type,
Yeah. I'm
journey. So I think it's going to be
yeah.
about that.
I'm curious about the whole thing, and this has been the first installment where I said I don't want to see the trailer. And I feel like nowadays they can ruin a movie with the trailer. This is not like me because when 5 came out, I could not get enough of YouTube creators. Any creator that was putting out Scream information, Scream 5, I was all about it. And that was one of the things that attracted me to channels like We Watched a Movie, like Craven
Mm.
Something Scary, recipes, and Night Watch Zone. I was all about it because they put out such good content for Scream that I just wanted to know what their theories were. And it was fun for me because I was like, oh yeah, that could happen. I could see where that what might happen in the third act. And so it was cool. But with 7, I don't know if it's because now we have Nev back or what the deal is, but I'm just like la 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 because I want to have some kind of a surprise. I haven't
Yeah,
been diving into it. So it's not that far out now. But all in all, I feel like whatever they bring us for the seventh movie, I'm filling a seat, as they say. I will be there.
fair enough.
And 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 I love this franchise so much that I always feel like I have to be there on opening night because if I get word of something being spoiled, that would suck
Hmm.
for anyone watching. Go back and enjoy. And if there's anything that we mentioned that's like an Easter egg that you didn't pick up on, now there's one more thing. And pay attention to the set. Pay attention to the posters on the wall. Pay attention to the books that are on the bookshelf. Pay attention to the music. You know, like the fact that when Billy came in through the window, they're playing Don't Fear the Reaper. It's like a
I
warning
love that. I
sign.
I love that so much. That and that
Yes.
one is so subtle because it's such a soft version of Don't Fear the Reaper. It's not the original. And so at
Yeah.
first you just think, oh, it's this nice kind of instrumental 90s love song. And then you actually start listening to the lyrics and you're like, oh no. Oh dear. Run, Sydney. It's fantastic. It's just done so subtly.
So I cannot think of a better person to have done this episode with, and I mean that.
Thank you. This was
Yeah.
so much fun. I really loved it. Just a lot of people, and I kind of get it, Scream for some people can be a bit overrated, it's everywhere, but not for me. Like, Scream is, I don't know if I mentioned this, it's not just my favorite horror movie, it's actually in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I think it is a near perfect horror film, and I think that it's like the ultimate slasher film for me. Like, I know a lot of people go to Halloween for that, and I totally understand that. For me, it's this one. This is the ultimate slasher. It kind of brought slashers back to being a little bit more respectable because bless the 80s, they slashers in the 80s, in the late 80s and the early 90s, all of the Jason sequels, all of the Bad Nightmare sequels, Leprechaun, the slashers were in a bad state at that point and they were getting a very bad name as just, gory flicks with like over the top nudity. And so I feel that Scream by bringing it back to like the characters and getting such a great director with Wes and having that really sharp script. It's just like I said, it's the horror movie for horror movie lovers. It's the best gateway movie, I think, if you want to get into horror. And yeah, Sydney Prescott has become, such an iconic final girl. She's still my favorite final girl of all time. And so thank you so much for having me
Yes.
and for inviting me on to do this. It has been so much fun.
And I'm looking forward to any other fun things that we can kind of come up with for 2026 now that I'm playing around with the lives where the chat can kind of get involved too.
Excellent.
So everyone keep your eyes open for that. I think that you could give, an opinion sometimes that doesn't necessarily match my own, which is nice because it would be kind of boring if we had the same thoughts and opinions.
True.
So,
Like it's
yeah.
nice to talk about a movie that we both love and that we fully agree on. That's great.
Yeah.
But like when we did our Halloween Kills, we had, some differing opinions
Yeah.
there. And I was
Yes, we
rewatching
did.
that one recently. That one was a fun one. That one was so much fun. But I noticed that, we were taking each other's opinions in stride and being like, oh yeah, I hadn't noticed that. And like you said, sometimes when you have someone who has a different opinion to you, they can make you look at a scene in a completely new way, in a completely different way, and give you a better appreciation. So yeah, hopefully we'll see what comes up in the future and where we go from here.
Absolutely. All right, you guys need to go out and watch Scream 7.